don't be upset with me if I am sighing during this next topic. It's not because I'm not interested in our podcast. It's because what we have feared would come to pass has started to, because we just got a startling preview of how AI is going to reshape politics. So in the US here, we're kicking off a 2024 presidential election season. Our election seasons are painfully long, and this one kicked off with an attack ad that was 100% generated by artificial intelligence. And basically, it's a video that imagines like a future dystopia where President Joe Biden has remained in office after next year's results and all this terrible stuff happens. So obviously, it's Republican focus produced video, and the images, the voices, the video clips, all AI generated, are really, really convincing. And they were created with widely available AI technology. And they kind of foreshadow this election season where AI is going to be used by all parties and all actors on every part of the political spectrum to generate hyper realistic synthetic content at scale. And we'll talk about that a little bit here, because at the same time, I think because of threats like these and what else is going on, governments do seem like they are speeding up taking some type of action around AI. So lawmakers in the US and Europe both signaled this week that they're taking more aggressive action to regulate AI. For instance, in the US, we saw four major federal agencies, including the Federal Trade Commission and the Department of Justice, release a joint statement on their stance towards AI companies. And they made it very clear they would not treat AI companies different from other firms when enforcing rules and regulations. So they've come out with quite a strong stance saying, look, if you break the rules, you will face consequences, regardless of what technology you're developing. Now, in Europe, the European Parliament reached a deal to move forward on the world's first, kind of comprehensive AI rule book. It's called the Artificial Intelligence Act, and it's been around for probably almost a year now, or hypothesized and debated over in the European Parliament. And it's a broad suite of regulations that govern the use of AI within the European Union. So there's tons of safeguards in there that protect against things like misusing the systems and having rules that protect citizens from AI risks. So there's a lot going on when it comes to how AI is impacting governments and society and how those forces are reacting. So, Paul, I know you had a pretty strong reaction to the political ad that was released this week. Can you walk us through your thoughts? Specifically, you had warned that despite how much of a hot topic AI is, that the average citizen still really has no idea that AI can create realistic synthetic media at a level of accuracy or scale that we're seeing today.
Yeah, the thing that I took away, the ad itself isn't anything crazy. Like if you've been following along in this space, it's not like there was some breakthrough in AI, technology that generated some kind of creative output we've never seen before. It was basically a mashup of AI generated images that strung together with some text and some audio. But the thing that really was a triggering point for me is it's just the prelude to what's about to happen. So, I mean, we're going to see AI creating content at a scale we've never seen before. Personalization of ads, personalization of messaging, text messaging, emails, video content, like all of it, all the best of what's available, the most advanced technology is going to be used in these campaigns. Like it's not even a debate. And then the challenge, somebody said on my LinkedIn post was about like, well, when lawmakers step in, it's like, they're the people that are using the technology. What are they going to do? Stop themselves from using it? So I feel like the significance is really the fact that it's just a sign of things to come. One person was commenting, oh, it's just like, who cares? It's like Photoshop. Like you could always do this with Photoshop. And it's like, I think that's just missing point. Like to do something like this with Photoshop would have required expertise in Photoshop. Do something like this in Midjourney doesn't require the depth of expertise. Sure, you need to know how to prompt it and stuff, but the average person can do this. And so the average army of people that are working for these campaigns can create almost endless amounts of this content. And so that's the part that really worries me is the ability to create this stuff at scale, targeted at an individual level, basically. These political campaigns are some of the most advanced campaigns we've ever seen. Most marketers probably aren't even aware how advanced the stuff these political campaigns do. They have hundreds of millions of dollars, not billions of dollars, to put into these campaigns. And so I just feel like we're about to see the best and worst of what AI can do all at once for the next, what do we got? 16 months, 17 months, whenever this election happens.
Yeah.
So we are about to get firsthand look at what this AI is capable of. And as you highlighted, my biggest concern is that the average US citizen has no idea AI can do this stuff. Like they're not going to know the difference. And that's a problem. Like there's a need for very rapid education because political campaigns historically, they do disinformation, misinformation, propaganda. It's by nature what politics is,
Mm.
but never at a scale like this, never with the ability to manipulate people, their emotions and their behavior the way that they'll be able to now. And that's what worries me about it.
So it doesn't really seem like we're in a time where brands and businesses can totally stay out of politics. So, like, what, as a professional or a business leader, seeing where this is going and where AI generated content will soon be a norm in terms of what we are bombarded with and have to respond to as business people, like, what should business people be thinking about or doing to prepare for this?
Honestly, at this point, I think it's doing their part to help educate society. Like I don't know how else to say it. Like,
Hmm.
you're going to start getting questions from family members and friends. It's going to be a topic of conversation. Like this is going to start surfacing. People that would never talk to you about AI are going to start asking you, like, you know how they did that deep fake thing? Or you know what they're talking about with all this misinformation? Like, and you're going to be the one that needs to bring reason and understanding to the conversation.
Mhm.
So I think that if nothing else, it's just preparing yourself to help educate within your own company, but larger point within society, within your family, within your friends, just about what's happening, because it's going to be really hard to know what to believe. Um, and I do think that in some ways, like sources of truth are going to be really, really important.
Mm.
Like if your family or coworkers are the kind of people who tend to believe what they see online, on Facebook, on Twitter, wherever they're getting their information, TikTok, there has to just be an increased awareness that what they're seeing may not be real and
Mm.
true. Now, again, this isn't new to society. We've been dealing with this for a long time, but again, it's just going to be the scale. And I really think we're going to need to just find the sources of information that we know we can trust. And if we see something, verify. Like I don't know. Like I don't know that we can rewire society in the next 18 months of how to process this kind of information. But I really just think it's doing your part to help educate as best as possible, without alienating. Like again, it's politics. Like it's really hard to have these conversations without
Mm.
someone getting mad or someone, throwing dirt at one side or the other. And we're just trying to kind of raise awareness of it as a content and an information vehicle, and the need for people to understand how this stuff works and what it's able to create. I don't know what else to do at this point, honestly. That's why we put it up on LinkedIn and why we wanted to throw it into the podcast, is just make sure that the conversation's happening in some small way.
Yeah. So let's talk for a second about these varying government responses to AI technology out there. In the US, it seems like, from what we've heard from the federal agencies that I just talked about, that we're moving towards essentially regulating AI by applying existing laws to AI companies, whether they're, that apply to non-AI companies as well. Whereas it seems like the EU is attempting to craft AI specific legislation. How do you view kind of the differing approaches here? Is there one that's better than the other, or?
I don't know. Like, again, I think this is an important topic to surface. We've talked previously about the challenges of the AI Act within the EU, and the technical challenges of overseeing that, kind of governing once they have it in place. And we talked about kind of what appears to be lack of action from the U.S. government.
Hmm.
So I think it's an important topic. There was a Fast Company article that we'll drop in the show notes. That, they kind of brought up the point of that this what you were saying. The U.S. is going to try and kind of apply these existing laws, where the EU is trying to get specific. And the challenge they said is like it's going to get really hard to apply it to specific technologies, especially as this stuff scales and all these new technologies popping up, and now you have to keep applying new laws. So it seems like kind of more general guidance might be the better path here.
Hmm.
But, when I read the joint statement, so the joint statement was from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, Department of Justice, Civil Rights Division, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, and the Federal Trade. Um, when I read it, I just felt like it was a lot of, okay, like, how are you actually going to govern this though? Like, it just seems like a blanket statement to just say we're looking at this and we're aware we're not going to let people get away with stuff with no real clear guidance of what that actually means or what actions they would take. So I'll give you an example. So in the joint statement, they say that these federal agencies are responsible for enforcing civil rights, non-discrimination, fair competition, consumer protection. So totally get this. Like they don't want AI used in determining your ability to get home loans or jobs or like these things that are obvious. Like, okay, that makes sense. And the FTC doesn't want you to do false advertising. Sure. Okay. Like I can see how these existing laws can govern that,
Hmm.
but it really starts to get kind of messy when you start looking at some of the specific areas. So like they say the FTC Act doesn't want to be able to use discriminating impacts or to make claims about AI that are not substantiated or to deploy AI before taking steps to assess and mitigate risks. Finally, the FTC has required firms to destroy algorithms or other work product that were trained on data that should not have been collected. Okay, so if we just take that paragraph, do not deploy before taking steps to assess and mitigate risks. So does this mean that the FTC Act is cool with how GPT-4 came to market? Like, do they, or Midjourney or Stable Diffusion? Like, they're are they looking at those things? Because those would all seem to fit under this umbrella, in which case, then they should give more guidance that says, specifically, here are some examples of how this has been applied.
Hmm.
So I look at this and say, you're basically saying, we're going to do this because you haven't apparently done it, or at least you haven't shared with like the general public how you applied those. And then has required firms to destroy algorithms or other work product that were trained on data that should not have been collected. Like what? Like copyrighted materials that train image generation technology. So they have to destroy Stable Diffusion. Like what? So that's what I'm saying. Like it's this sort of broad general statement that doesn't actually appear to have anything tactical behind it.
Mm.
And you can again go read the joint statement yourself. It's only 3 pages, but they get into 3 specific areas that again just sort of called to me like this is just this general guidance. So they have data sets, so automated systems that can be skewed by unrepresentative or imbalanced data sets. They have model opacity and access, talking about these things being black boxes. That's what generative AI is. Like they don't know why it's generating the words it's generating. Like, so all of this applies to this.
Mm.
This lack of transparency often makes it all the more difficult for developers, businesses, and individuals to know whether an automated system is fair. And then design and use, which is the developers do not always understand or account for the context in which private and public entities will use their automated systems. Um, so I get it. My overall take here is I think it's good that the federal government is saying something. I don't feel like this is anywhere near as specific as the Copyright Office guidance from March 16th. I think to the U.S. Copyright Office's credit, they were very specific in their
Mhm.
guidance, whether it's right or wrong, or whether it's going to have to evolve to allow some form of AI authorship. That's to be debated. But they put out very specific guidance, and then they announced listening sessions to hear feedback. This to me is like someone told these agencies they better be doing something,
Mm.
and they teamed up and put out a statement through the PR team. And if you press them on what does this actually mean, they probably have no idea. I hope I'm wrong, but that's sure what this seems like as a former PR person. This is a lot of like, hey, we're working on this and thinking about it.